Hi everyone, welcome to Lana Whisper Tales. Let's dive into today's story. Asterisk. Today's episode is about Between Love and Vengeance. Asterisk. The two families. A thriving town where the clatter of markets and the hum of merchants carried through the narrow streets. Two families stood tall above the rest. The first was the household of Tala's parents, respected merchants who built their name not through trickery or intimidation, but through persistence, discipline, and the unyielding belief that dignity was worth more than quick profit. They were not the wealthiest at first, but their reputation as honest traders made them the kind of family everyone nodded to with respect. Opposite them, in fortune and philosophy, was the family of Noria. Noria's parents were powerful, ambitious, and ruthless. They lived in the same city in a grand house of white stone, always dressed in finery, their words sharp as daggers. They believed that life was a competition that could only be won if others were brought to their knees. For them, honor was less important than victory. Tala himself, a boy of 10 when our story truly begins, had been sent away at a very young age to study in a distant town. His parents wanted him to grow with wisdom far from the daily struggles of rivalry, hoping he would one day return with knowledge to strengthen the family's future. Noria, however, remained with her parents, raised in the midst of power, envy, and constant plotting. It began with a business opportunity, one that could shift the balance of wealth and status between the two families. Both households competed for the same venture, each pouring resources, influence, and connections into acquiring it. When the dust settled, it was Tala's parents who emerged victorious. Their bid was fair, their strategy clever, and the opportunity soon bloomed into a thriving enterprise. The town whispered with admiration. The Tala family's business prospered, gold filled their coffers, and their name carried even further. With prosperity came comfort, and with comfort came the kind of influence that only honest success could bring. But to the family of Noria, this triumph was salt poured into an open wound. They had wanted the enterprise desperately, believing it was rightfully theirs. Their defeat bred envy, and envy soon hardened into hatred. The seeds of envy at first. The rivalry remained within the bounds of business. Noria's parents tried to outcompete, to win new ventures, to prove themselves superior. Yet the more they fought, the more the Tala family flourished. That flourishing was unbearable. Whispers turned into schemes. Noria's parents began to move in shadows, weaving alliances with corrupt officials, bribing, spreading rumors, and planting seeds of distrust. Slowly, carefully, they sought to erode the foundation of the Tala family's success. At first, the cracks were invisible. A contract lost here, a shipment delayed there. But over time, the web tightened. Loyal partners withdrew. Banks hesitated to lend. The market buzzed with rumors that the Taylor family had cheated, stolen, lied. None of it was true, but in the court of public opinion, truth mattered less than repetition. Asterisk, the diary. The night was silent when Taylor found the small wooden box hidden beneath his father's bed. Dust had gathered on its surface, the scent of cedar lingering faintly as he pulled it free. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside lay a thick, leather-bound diary, its edges worn, its cover cracked from years of handling. He sat by the dim light of an oil lamp and began to read. The handwriting was his father's, firm yet weary. Words pressed deep into the page, as if the pen itself carried the weight of sorrow. At first, the entries were simple. Notes on trade, accounts of travels, reflections on the daily toil of a merchant's life. But as Taylor turned the pages, the tone shifted. They are watching us. I have heard whispers that our partners no longer trust me. Contracts are being stolen, one by one. I fear this is no accident. The boy's eyes widened as he read further. His father described betrayal, sabotage, and a campaign of lies so carefully woven it strangled them in silence. The name appeared again and again. Noria's family. I trusted too much in fairness. I believed that honesty would protect us, but their greed knows no limits. They would rather see us crawl in the dirt than live alongside us with dignity. Taylor felt the words burn into his heart. For the first time, he understood why his parents had withered away, why their eyes had carried sorrow heavier than poverty. They had not simply lost a business. They had been destroyed, deliberately, cruelly, by those who envied their light. The spark of vengeance. Taylor closed the diary, his small hands shaking. Tears blurred the ink as he whispered to himself. In that moment, something shifted inside him. The grief that had once left him hollow began to transform into something sharper. Anger coiled within him, feeding on every memory of his parents' suffering, every humiliation they had endured. He was only 10, yet the vow formed clearly. I will not forgive. I will not forget. One day they will pay that. The world outside his small home seemed colder than ever. But within the boy's chest burned a fire that would not be extinguished. The road ahead, the days that followed, were lonely. No one came to comfort the orphaned child. Neighbors averted their eyes, fearful of being associated with disgrace. He survived on scraps, on the fading memory of his parents' lessons. But Taylor was not weak. He began to study the diary, not only for its words of sorrow, but also for the wisdom hidden within. His father had written of strategies, of markets, of alliances, both strong and fragile. Beneath the lament was knowledge. Tela absorbed hungrily. Each night he whispered his vow again. I will rise. I will reclaim what was stolen. I will bring them down. And though he was but a boy, alone in the world, destiny had already marked him. The path of vengeance had begun. The once respected family found themselves trapped. Invitations to gatherings dried up. Neighbors looked away in the streets. And the weight of whispers pressed heavier with each passing day. Noria's parents pressed further, orchestrating not only the downfall of the business, but the ruin of the family's name. What use is wealth, they said to their allies, if their pride remains intact? Let us strip them of everything. And so it was. The Tela family was cornered, shamed, mocked, until they could no longer bear to walk the streets of the city they had once adorned. With heavy hearts and faces bowed in disgrace, they fled, banished not by law, but by humiliation. Exile and death, for years they lived away from the city, shadows of their former selves. Tela, though still only a child, watched the light fade from his parents' eyes. The once strong father grew weary. The once proud mother grew frail. They had carried their honor until it became too heavy a burden. It was not poverty that killed them, but despair. Within a few short years, both parents passed, leaving young Tela alone, orphaned by envy, betrayed by the world he had yet to understand. When he was 10 years old, Tela discovered the diary his father had kept. Inside were the confessions of a man who had tried to protect his family with dignity, who had trusted too much in fairness, and who had been destroyed by those who valued victory above justice. It was in those pages that Tela learned the truth not only of how his family had fallen, but of who had struck the blows. The names were there. The deceit was there. And most of all, the rage that now began to rise in the boy's heart. Asterisk. The long journey abroad's Tela had inherited little from his parents, merely a sum enough to cover tuition, a few personal belongings, and the weight of their expectations. Yet, within him burned a resolve far stronger than any coin or gem. The promise to restore his family's honor. He studied relentlessly, immersing himself in economics, business strategy, and international trade. Days stretched into nights as he worked part-time jobs to support himself, all the while dreaming of the day he could return, not as the abandoned child of a disgraced family, but as a man of power and means. 10 years passed. Tela's name, once unknown in distant lands, became synonymous with diligence and brilliance. Companies noticed him. Investors respected him. Finally, at the age of 25, Tela made the boldest move of his career. He acquired a foreign enterprise with untapped potential. Under his guidance, it flourished beyond expectation, producing wealth unimaginable even in his grandest dreams. Yet wealth alone could not fill the hollow left by his parents' demise. He was affluent, yes, but the fire of vengeance never dimmed. He spent days planning, nights strategizing, always keeping the final goal in mind: restoring the Taylor name, repaying the debts of humiliation, reclaiming justice. Returned to the city. When Taylor returned to his hometown, the streets were familiar yet changed. Buildings had shifted, businesses evolved, but the pulse of the city, the ebb of commerce, the whispers of rivalry remained. He moved quietly, observing markets, talking to merchants, mapping the networks of power, ensuring no misstep could betray him. It was in a small, unassuming shop that fate intervened. Taylor collided with a young woman. Her hair caught the light of the setting sun. Her eyes, wide and luminous, held a spark that seemed to recognize something in him. He apologized, and she smiled. Smile that seemed to warm the very air around them. They spoke casually, exchanging words that were simple but full of a strange familiarity. Taylor, who had rarely laughed since childhood, found himself drawn to her, fascinated by her presence, charmed by her voice. Over the next weeks, their paths crossed repeatedly, each encounter deepening a bond neither fully understood. The revelation looms for a time. Taylor did not know her identity. Yet subtle signs began to emerge, hints of her family. The sharpness in her words, the way others treated her with both respect and wariness. Piece by piece, a terrifying realization began to crystallize. The woman who captivated him, the one who made his heart stir for the first time in years, was none other than Noria, the daughter of the family that had destroyed his parents. The source of the rage he had nurtured all his life. The irony struck him silently. He was drawn to the enemy of his own bloodline, unaware that attraction and vengeance would soon collide in ways he could not yet imagine. The path ahead would demand careful planning, patience, and the courage to balance desire with destiny. Watching the city. Taylor returned quietly to the city. He watched every street, every market, and every business once owned by his parents' enemies. He listened to deals, noted people's habits, and marked who held power. Every detail mattered. He was no longer a child. He acted with patience and strategy, not anger. His goal was clear: step by step, reclaim what his parents had lost. Building PowerTill started small. He bought shares, made friends with bankers, politicians, and merchants. He invested, negotiated, and grew stronger. Soon, Noria's family businesses began to weaken. Debts grew, profits shrank, and pressure mounted. Taylor never used violence. Law, money, and smart planning worked for him. Everything moved exactly as he planned. Meeting Nori one day in a small shop, Taylor accidentally bumped into a young woman. She smiled gracefully, confident, and warm. They spoke briefly, and Taylor was drawn to her. They met repeatedly in the following weeks. Their conversations, shared laughter, and small gestures slowly built trust and closeness. Taylor did not yet know she was Noria, the daughter of the family he was slowly dismantling. Asterisk. New beginnings. After the confrontation, Noria finally understood the truth. She realized Tala's actions had been carefully planned, not personal cruelty, but a calculated pursuit of justice for his parents. The anger and betrayal softened over time. Taylor offered reconciliation. Slowly, Noria forgave him, not fully at first, but enough to let them rebuild trust. Together, they began restoring the city's businesses, repairing what could be saved, and learning to balance power and compassion. For Taylor, the revenge was complete, but so was the unexpected discovery of love. He had taken back what was lost, honored his parents' legacy, and found a partner who understood both his heart and his mission. Family ties unknown, neither Taylor nor Noria knew the full truth. Taylor was unaware that the girl he was growing close to was the daughter of his enemy. Noria also did not know his plans or his connection to her family's downfall. Eventually, Kayla bought Noria's family home through the bank. He reminded her parents of the old debts and the losses that had begun 15 years ago. Noria witnessed the confrontation and, misunderstanding Tyla's intentions, became angry. She lashed out in words and emotion, thinking he had come to hurt her personally. Taylor remained calm, restraining himself. At that moment, their paths intertwined. Revenge and growing attachment collided. Taylor remained focused on his plan, but feelings for Noria began to emerge, complicating his mission. Asterisk. The final move. Taylor had spent years building power quietly, gathering influence and weakening his enemies without anyone suspecting. Now, the final step was clear. He would confront Noria's family fully and claim the final piece of their empire. He went to the family home, prepared legal documents, and arranged the foreclosure with the bank. Noria's parents arrived, shocked to see him in charge of everything. Taylor calmly reminded them of the old debts, of the humiliation and losses that began 15 years ago. Noria, watching from the doorway, realized the truth. Her anger flared, not just at the situation, but at Taylor himself. She could not believe the man she had grown close to was the one who had orchestrated her family's downfall. She confronted him, shouting, accusing, even striking out physically. Taylor did not retaliate. He remained calm, measured, patient. It was the moment everything came together. revenge, justice, and the unexpected truth of his feelings for Noria collided. He saw the girl he loved, the daughter of his enemy, and the same person. For the first time, he had to balance his heart with his mission. The sun was setting over the city, painting the streets in golden hues. Tayla stood by the balcony of the restored family home, watching the quiet streets below. Noria was beside him, her hand gently brushing his. There was a calm between them now, a peace that had seemed impossible years ago. "It's strange," Noria said softly, "to think of all the anger, the revenge. And now, here we are." Tayla nodded. "I wanted to rebuild what was lost, but I never expected this. You." They laughed quietly, a sound that carried both relief and unspoken understanding. They had fought shadows of the past, faced mistakes and betrayal, and yet had arrived at something new. Love, trust, and a shared vision for the future. Tayla looked at her, seeing not the daughter of an enemy, but a partner, a companion, someone who understood both the pain and the hope. Noria looked back with the same recognition in her eyes. "Can't be predicted," she said. "Even revenge has its lessons." He smiled. "Yes, and some of the best lessons are unexpected." They stood together, watching the sunset. The city, once a battlefield of debts, betrayal, and ambition, was now theirs to shape. Not with anger, but with understanding, patience, and care. For the first time in years, Tayla felt complete, not just victorious, but truly at peace. The past had ended, and the future, uncertain yet full of hope, awaited them. The message I want to give is revenge may bring justice to the past, but only forgiveness and love can build a future. True strength is not in destroying others, but in healing the scars they left behind. Thanks for watching Lana Whisper Tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. See you in the next story.